Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show for your Thursday afternoon edition. A fun one with regards to market volatility, and I have a ton of viewer questions that I need to get to today. So I will do my best to pack it all in, and I've got a 3 o'clock call, so unfortunately I'm going to end right at 3, or before 3 today. No 1 hour shows today. So a question came in this afternoon, about an hour and a half ago, so I didn't have much time to do research on this one, but I thought it would be fun just to throw it out there and see what you guys think. And it was this question of, with AMD releasing a brand new chip, which was announced today, does that give competition to Nvidia, and should we look to short Nvidia and go long on AMD based off of that? And I was like, okay, well, let me do a whole bunch of digging. So I went and did some research on what the chip specs were, the differentiation between the Blackwell chip and the AMD chip to kind of see where they stand. And of course, I asked AI to help me out with that one, which I thought was, I got to do that, because when it comes down to all the different chip properties, it's beyond me. And I am in the camp, as I think many of you are, which is Nvidia is the king, right? They're absolutely dominant, and for someone to break into that market, they're going to have to do something unique or offer a different service, or maybe something that's extremely much cheaper and take away some of those profit margins from Nvidia. So here's the graphic for today. AMD versus Nvidia. Show 1142 for the Trader Merlin Show. And I'll start with, I guess, just the basics, which is, let's take a peek at some of the charts here. So we'll bring up Nvidia and look, I'm going to put them on a weekly just so we can get a broader picture of what the long-term scope of this looks like. Here's AMD to start with. So AMD, while it was on a beautiful trend, has been, aggressively sold off since, I'll go to the peak here, which was in 2024. We're talking a 66% sell-off in 57 weeks, bottoming out in April of this year. And since then, it's been on a fairly nice rally. We're up about 56%. That doesn't look that great. The only argument I would make here from a technical perspective is that you have these technically higher lows in play, right? So this recent low from April has not broken that low from back in October of 2022. So I guess that's a positive thing, but the picture looks like a horrible EKG, like bringing the defibrillator. This dude is having a heart attack. Now, if you look at NVDA, the picture has a lot more strength to it. And I think that this is just much more indicative of global adoption and kind of the world realizing that, NVIDIA is where it's at and gobbling up, putting tons of demand for those chips going forward. In that sell-off, the biggest sell-off NVIDIA had here was back in January of this year to the most recent lows. That wasn't that dramatic. 43% sell-off. Okay, I'll say that's a little bit dramatic. Maybe not as extreme as we saw with AMD, but certainly a big pullback. So from a performance perspective, we could actually add these on top of each other, and I think we all know which way this is going to go. It'll certainly favor NVIDIA over the past couple of years. You can see the black line on your screen is AMD, and the candlestick chart is NVIDIA, which is, let's just go from 2022. From 2022, AMD is actually down about 18%, whereas NVIDIA is up, almost 400%. So clearly the money's flowing in, and that's no surprise. NVIDIA offered a product that was, do AMD divided by NVIDIA? Give me a sec. It's no surprise that NVIDIA has the lion's share because of the product is far superior. Now, the chip that came out today, this is from Thomas. So Thomas, thank you for the question. Says, with the release of AMD's new chip, is now a good time to buy some AMD shares? Well, let's look at the chips side by side. I asked AI, so I hope that there's no errors in here, to do a side-by-side comparison of the new MI350X chip, which is the one that AMD announced today, and the Nvidia Blackwell B200. Now, there certainly are different variations of these. Some might be higher performance or lower performance. But I thought, let's just look high level at these chips. And the reason I wanted to do it this way is, if I'm a consumer that's looking to get into the AI space, so let's say I'm creating Merlin's widgets, and Merlin's widget's going to be this AI trading platform that, uses all these great large language models I need to program. I'm going to look at see what's most cost effective for me and help me achieve my goals. And I think any big business owner should look at multiple choices, get different quotes, if you will, if you're getting a new roof put on. So what makes these chips tick? What separates them? For me, number one is going to be performance. Now, I thought this was somewhat interesting. So the Nvidia Blackwell chip apparently is a 4 nanometer technology, which is slightly thicker, meaning it's a little bit bigger than the AMD AMD is 3 nanometers, and what that means is that chip is a little bit smaller, it uses less energy to power, it's a little bit more compact and efficient. So that's pretty good. As you can see there on power consumption, it shows that the AMD chip will be likely less than 1,000 watts. And I love this because it says likely. That should be a big clue here that this isn't coming anytime soon. Right now, the Blackwell chip's rolling out, and the AMD chip is likely to be sometime mid this year. So even though we can run through all these numbers and maybe the fingers do point to AMD and say this is a great product, I still have to wait several months before this gets released or gets to the mainstream market in mass and therefore changing their bottom line. What other pieces here? When it comes to processing, AMD wins. Believe it or not, AMD wins just because of efficiency. You've got a smaller footprint, more compact surface, less energy consumption with 3 nanometers versus 4. And by the way, I did go out and look at other competitors making similar chips. If you want, I can't copy and paste it. I asked AI to generate a list of everybody that's competing directly with this Blackwell B200 chip. And it's interesting, it seems like almost everybody is trying to come up with something, but no one's come close to the performance. And if you want, I can run through what the responses were from AI, which I thought was actually rather interesting. Okay, all the rest of this stuff, like, I don't know, the HPC, FP6, all that stuff, I don't know. And it seems like it really does give the edge here, for the most part, to, I mean, it kind of feels like a tie. I mean, AMD gets efficiency, they get the memory capacity, but the Blackwell chip can be doubled up. So actually, if you get different configurations, it would be much better than the AMD chip. Part down here at the bottom is I want to look at this market share. There's two things here that stand out to me. Number one is pricing. So Blackwell is running about 40,000, AMD's chip 20,000. So here's where my inner value shopper is going, wait, if I can get comparable performance and pay half as much, I'm probably going to go with half as much. Now, here is the big kicker. And this is where I talked to my buddy who is an Nvidia guy, and he said to me, I didn't talk to him today, this is a few weeks ago, but he said, one of the big things that will give Nvidia its huge competitive advantage is not only the chips themselves. And he says, yeah, we'll get competition. We'll get companies that are going to jump in that space and build something that will be comparable. But where Nvidia feels that they really accelerate is the software. So you got the hardware that you're buying, but it's also the software which integrates with so many other applications. And you can go open libraries of different software built by Nvidia that will allow you to accomplish your goals much faster in a better way. That's called CUDA. So that CUDA system is extremely mature. It is very developed. It's like everybody's building on CUDA now because Nvidia has 90% of the market. You get 90% of the market, and you have this software system that is now getting more and more people entrenched and glued to Nvidia. So, I mean, that's a tough one. So I look at it as a consumer, what would I rather do? My value shopper mind says I'm going to go with the AMD chips. They might be more energy efficient. They're costing me half as much, but I don't even have the software ecosystem to support and maybe not be to build what I want to build using these chips. Now, of course, I'm sure that AMD is going to work feverishly to build out that ecosystem, but they're years behind Nvidia, years behind. So it's tough. I do think that there is some potential upside here for AMD, which, looking at that price chart, let me take this one off here real quick just so we can look at the chart by itself. We could make the argument that AMD looks depressed price-wise. Currently trading at $118. It peaked out back in January of 2024 at like $230. So, you're down, let's call it roughly 50% at current prices. That would seem like it's a good deal. One of the challenges here is also valuation. So, is AMD making enough money? Are they performing well from a financial perspective? Well, who do you guys think has the higher PE ratio? I'm just curious. What do you guys think? Who's got the higher PE ratio? Is it AMD or is it Nvidia? Remember, part of the talk track that you and I have had has been just this huge expectant push up in Nvidia, right? That everyone's jumping on Nvidia and going to push that share price higher. You'd be surprised here. Take a peek at this. Here is AMD's financials, and we can see their current PE ratio for trailing 12 months is 90 bucks. 90. So they've got a 90 PE ratio, which is significantly higher than the historical averages of the S&P. The S&P averages between 15 and 18. Let's be generous and call it 20. This thing is over 4 times as high of a PE ratio as the S&P 500. That's not good. Now, if you go back and look at, cancel. If we go close that out and go look at Nvidia, Nvidia's PE ratio, 46. It's half. It's half as much as AMD. Now, why? Because everyone is buying Nvidia stuff. So their profit margins, what did we say they were last time when their earnings came out? I thought it was 71% profit margins. They dropped down to like 60-something% profit margins for Nvidia. They're making money hand over fist. 66. Thanks, Steven. So we're seeing those profit margins drop for Nvidia, but still, if everyone's buying Nvidia products and they're making 66% profit margins, they are crushing it on earnings, and that's probably going to continue. What did I forgot? 66? Sorry, Steven. I can't remember all the numbers, man. I'm old. This brain can't hold all that data. I've got notepads and notes all over this desk right now. I can't remember 66% profit margins for Nvidia. So to me, that's another one. That they're only making 66%. Sorry. That's another factor in this. You look at Nvidia. I would have, if you asked me the same question, if I was watching your show and you said who's got a higher PE, I would have most certainly have said Nvidia. But Nvidia is making money, whereas AMD is making money, but not as much, right? Much less. So that's not a great sign for AMD going forward. Now, bottom line is, for the gentleman that asked the question, let me get your Thomas. Thomas asked the question here. Is now the time to buy Nvidia? I guess you got to think of what you believe the future is going to hold for AMD. If AMD is 50% off its all-time high and looking okay, at least for the past few months, fine. If you believe that this chip is going to come to market when they say it's going to come to market, remember, when you set an expectation of a release date, that could get pushed further and further down the road. So at surface value, these chips look fairly similar. Right? I think Nvidia has the competitive edge with the software side of things. From a performance perspective, it looks relatively even here. So I don't see any monstrous advantage for Nvidia with regards to the chips, other than they've got the name, they got the branding, they got the business connections, they got the software, and for that, they're charging double the price. Now, will you start to get businesses that come into the space and say, hey, you know what, I can't afford 40 grand, I'm going to go and buy myself some AMD chips. Yes, I do believe that will happen. And that could certainly help their bottom line, especially when you've got two items that performance-wise are somewhat comparable. You've got the Cadillac, if you will, and then you've got it's got the same performance, but it doesn't have the branding. It doesn't have the allure of the Cadillac. I think that could probably do fairly well for them. What I would not do is I would not say I'm putting all my eggs in that AMD basket. I certainly would look at straddling that fence with both of them, or maybe buying a few others. If you look at, I don't think I did a good job of, I didn't make this one very clear for you, but let's see if I can do it while we did the show. I asked for a list of all the different competitors, so bear with me a couple seconds as I go into my materials here and try to clean this up for you guys and make it look a little bit better. This is a list of all of the different companies that are currently working on some sort of chip product that's going to compete and be in that AI space. So you've got Intel's working on their Gaudi 3, you've got Google with the TPU, V5P, Edge TPU, Amazon's got the Trainium 2 and the Interfertia. Who comes up with these names? It's like someone left the drug world and decided to make up chip names. They're all kind of futuristic and oddball. SMCI is not necessarily making their own chips. They're programming and developing other people's products. Microsoft's got your Maya 100. Meta's got MTIA. You've got all sorts of different ones. And the list goes on and on and on here. And I know it's kind of closed off, but I thought this is a really nice piece of work done by AI today to give me this list. And it just shows you there is a tremendous amount of competition. What I find interesting in the case of, let's say, Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Meta is these are your big four consumers and developers in the AI space, and they're building their own. Yes, they are using NVIDIA products now, but down the road, we may see a migration over to a product that is more efficient, a little bit, maybe not more efficient, but much cheaper and controlled by those entities. So that could certainly chip into Nvidia's dominance, but I really don't see that happening for quite some time. I think as soon as this Blackwell chip rolls out, it's the normal process, right? Blackwell is rolling out now. Companies are going to adopt and buy as many as they can. You know that Elon Musk, because of his rivalry with Sam Altman of OpenAI, is going to go, screw you, Sam. I'm going to pay a premium to buy all these Blackwell chips just so you can't get the chips you need for OpenAI, and I'm going to build XAI better, faster, cheaper, and I will undercut your business because I hate you, Sam Altman. That's essentially Elon Musk's perspective. As soon as these Blackwell chips roll out and they become the industry standard, there will be a new chip that comes to market. And it seems like every year at that conference, Jensen Huang and Nvidia roll out a faster, it's like the $6 million man, we'll make him faster, we'll make him stronger, right? We'll make him more efficient. That's the rinse, wash, repeat industry cycle that happens there. Which company will be the big winner in this chip war? Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM. You know, I look at it almost like crypto, right? I could make the argument that Nvidia is like Solana in the crypto world, and AMD would be like Ethereum. They're older, they've been around longer, they're not as efficient, they got buggy issues. Where do you make all the real money, though, is the underlying technology. And most of these companies are getting the bulk of their chips from Taiwan Semiconductor. Now, AMD manufactures their own. Nvidia is buying 97% of the chips that it's using from TSM. And so are a lot of other of these firms you see here. So when I bring up this giant list here with Qualcomm and Tenstorrent and Huawei, a lot of these guys are using TSM. So who's going to be the big winner? In the gold rush, go with the company that's selling the picks and shovels, in that case, TSM. If you're asking about the actual chip themselves, I still got to go with Nvidia. I think that what Nvidia has done a great job of is, as I just mentioned, you can have the best chipsets in the world, the best hardware. And that's great. Your little gamer nerds will go, sweet, I'm going to go buy my Nvidia graphics card for my computer because that's all I really need it for. But as a developer, someone that's building an AI system and, maybe I want to create some trading algorithm, some AI algorithm that uses all the data that's possible and I program it using AI, I need software. I need tools to help that happen. And that CUDA ecosystem of software, no one comes close to it in the industry. So I still think that we look at NVIDIA as like chips, but it's the software side, I think, that solidifies. And data centers, right? They have this like triangle of services that they're providing everybody. So for me, still NVIDIA all day, every day. I think, you're really looking at bigger pullbacks as buying opportunities in NVIDIA. It's hard to put a bet against NVIDIA. They just got such a dominant market share. They had vision from the early days. And, Intel is trying to compete with it, but they're a long ways away. And, looking at this, I also pulled up a list of all the companies that were, doing 3 nanometer chips. And most are doing 4, 5, 7 nanometer chips, which are much thicker, much more energy consumption, and not as efficient. It was interesting to see AMD at 3 nanometers versus Blackwell's 4. That's a slight difference there, just a minor little difference, but we'll see technology get better and better and better. Maybe push this into 2 nanometers or even sub-nanometer. It'd be crazy. Intel, not in love, yeah. Intel's been a major QC problem for years. Yeah, like Boeing, right? Yeah, I mentioned, we talked about this a while back, said out of the chip companies, which one would I be interested in buying? And I'm looking through all of them, and obviously nothing's guaranteed, but as a real high probability of prices going up over time, NVIDIA. As one where I'm taking a chance on it because it's been so beaten down, we talked about Intel. And Intel, one of the main reasons I was looking at is they got so much government grant money on that CHIPS Act. They got billions and billions of dollars. And there was talk for a long time, which never seemed to come to fruition, which was that they were going to split Intel into several different companies and get rid of some of the legacy pieces and start building different technologies and different businesses. But that has not happened. And you can see what's happened to Intel. It's been stuck. Intel really just feels like it's absolutely going nowhere. Honestly, if you're a spread trader, this is a fantastic trade for you because since August of last year, it's pretty much done nothing. Just sat there, and now you're kind of baselining right around $20. Not great. Intel has such a great name. I mean, you can't talk innovation of computers in America without talking about Intel. They were a monster part of it. But as everything goes in life, it's like the Lion King. You can be the king lion for a long time, and eventually you fade out, and a new king takes over. And right now, I think that king is Nvidia. But does Intel rise from the ashes? You could make the same argument about Microsoft, right? A few years back, people were laughing at Microsoft. One-dimensional, just operating systems. They made the Zune MP3 player, which was total trash. And now look what's happened to Microsoft. Microsoft has reinvented itself. Let me get rid of some of these. Microsoft has reinvented itself. It was funny because back here in 2015, 16, it was like, nothing that great. It's just an operating system. And then they kept rebranding, doing different things, surprised at what it has done. The chart of Microsoft looks absolutely fantastic. And for me, it was a dying brand. Yeah, I did Windows, but that was like it. Now they're cloud computing and all sorts of other industries. It's great. They've done a marvelous job. And I think that Intel can do that. Intel needs to have a group meeting with all the heads and say, okay, what we have been doing for the last 20 years, not working anymore. Let's scuttle that and start from scratch. We're going to take a big hit for a year while we rebuild, get the team in place, but we can compete with, I have no doubt they could compete with Taiwan Semiconductor if they put all their efforts and resources and focus on it. They got money. They got plenty of money. I almost feel like Apple has lost some vision. I think so too. I think, Margaret, you asked about their new liquid thing. I haven't dug into it, but it looks stupid, in my opinion. Like their transparent buttons and icons. Really? I don't care. Leave my phone, just make it cheaper and make it faster and give me some cool software. I don't care if I can now take two emojis and blend them together. I'm not 15. I don't need to be making emojis. So, what do we say? Margaret asked, where are most chips made? Taiwan. Yeah, liquid glass, not liquid gas. Yeah, Taiwan Semiconductor is pretty much it. And that's, when I was at that conference in, was it Dublin? Starts with a D, up in Southern California here. That was one of the questions when I think I mentioned to you guys was, what's the next black swan? And Taiwan is such a monstrous role in technology around the world that that little island becomes a very powerful piece of real estate that China says they own. Okay, that could be our launch point for more global conflict. Plus, the U.S. is actively circling around the island to protect them. All right, so that would be my response to your question there, Thomas. Is now a good time to buy AMD shares? I believe if you feel that this chip will start to gain some adoption, you have to have faith and believe in the CEO, the team, that they're going to not only make and deliver this product, but also have enough marketing power to go out to businesses and convince big businesses to use it. If you get me to buy one of those chips, that's not important. That's irrelevant. You need an Elon Musk to come and say, I'm buying 50,000 of these at a time, right? That's what he's done with Nvidia. I'll take 50,000 of those chips. That's an order, right? Some little nerd playing Warcraft on his mom's computer in the basement buying one chip is not going to do your business wonders. So you need good marketing, good development, and connections to get businesses to say, I'm not going to use Nvidia's suite of tools. I'm going to use AMD's. That's a tall mountain to climb, in my opinion. I think that's very, very challenging. I think there's upside, but I don't think you're going to see AMD just, vault to all-time highs and go absolutely parabolic. But I think it could certainly step up from here. And, does it go from 120 to 160 in the next 6 months, a year? Yeah, possibly. I think you're probably better off waiting for a pullback in Nvidia and getting a greater percentage move. I think Nvidia is kind of due for a pullback, even though the way it tends to move is it rips through all-time highs and then has a pullback. But I think you're discounting how much people pay for gaming PCs. I'm not necessarily discounting it, but remember, Nvidia also has a huge dominant share in that marketplace, right? I mean, there's people literally waiting in lines to sleeping overnight to get that Nvidia chip when it rolls out. In the video gaming world, Nvidia still is the top dog. So if you're a gamer, especially if you're a competitive gamer, right? Money's no object. You're going with Nvidia because it's the best. Industry standard. Now, can AMD cut into that? Possibly, Sava. I think they definitely can get in there, but that's tough. I mean, that's a tough market to crack. You know, when you have somebody has such market dominance, and you can look at Tesla, right? In the EV space. Tesla, the king of EVs in the United States. Is it easy to crack that market? Not really, but can you do it? Sure. Look at Rivian, right? Rivian is cracking that market slowly but surely. You've got other competitors like VinFast. You know, you've got other vehicle companies that are cracking it a little bit. But there's no one in the EV space that you could make a good argument that's just stealing the lunch of Tesla, right? I think that in the chip space, Nvidia is the Tesla of it. They're the dominant player in that space. You'll have all kinds of competition, but to get market domination, you have to have mass adoption. I just don't see AMD getting mass adoption, nor Intel. Because I have a buddy at Nvidia, their sales guy's job is to figure out who not to sell to due to full capacity. Right. You know, and my friend also was saying that they have companies coming to them and saying, hey, we'll put $1 billion down payment to get these chips. Not 100,000, $1 billion down payment. Like making sure we're locking in this next batch of 50,000. That's ours, right? Here's our down payment. Okay, we got you. Like they're not messing around with small players. And to Big Eb's point, it's a great point, Big Eb, thank you. If Nvidia knows that right now the demand is so off the charts that they can't sell to everyone they want to, what's logical for Nvidia to do? Ramp up production so now they can feed that bottom market and continue to grow their funnel. Right now it's like they're only just getting the very top of that funnel. If they can fill that whole thing, Nvidia's numbers are going to look even better. So if they start building more factories, increase production, Nvidia could do much better. I think you're selling puts on Nvidia, waiting for a big pullback. They don't need salespeople. Fish. That's true, SmackDown. I mean, when you have the name, right? Anybody here see Harvard run an ad? Well, I guess now it's not really a great time to talk about Harvard running an ad. But you look at like the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Boston, Princeton. You know, you don't see ads in newspapers saying, come to Harvard. Everybody knows that's where you want to go. That's like the elite place, or maybe it was the elite place. Yeah, you're right, SmackDown. People just go right into it. And where is NVIDIA located? Their Silicon Valley is their headquarters, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure they got production facilities in different places. That I don't know, Chris. All right, Thomas. So there you go. That's my take on it. To me, it is a battle. But it's a David versus Goliath. And again, NVIDIA has the market share. They got the software. They got the connections. They have the country and the globe as far as dominance. AMD might take a small piece of that market share. And as Big Ed points out, AMD may feast off of the customers that NVIDIA can't serve. They don't have enough capacity to service these customers. Those customers are going to go, well, I need equipment. I'm going AMD. And that could be where they start to grow from. Okay, I wanted to play an audio clip. I normally don't play audio clips for you, but I thought that this was a really interesting one. I hope I have it here. Maybe I don't. No, I removed it. Let me bring this up real quick. I want you guys to hear this clip. Remember our conversation yesterday was about Trump's direction in energy, right? Where does he go from here? What's he looking at? Where is the resources going to go? I hope that you guys can hear this. Let me just put this out here. I'll turn up my speakers a little bit so you can hear it. Let me know if you guys can hear this. I hope that you can. It should be playing on the computer, but I'll push this up here. And here's what Trump said today.
It's one of the greatest scams, and it's also the most expensive energy. And the environmentalists say, oh, we love wind. It sounds so good, but it's a horrible thing. Environmentally, it's a horrible thing. I say that to you. It's wind, and we are going to have virtually no one mandate we have. We're going to natural gas, nuclear. Nuclear, we just had a big signing with nuclear, making it easier, safer, and better. It's really, I would say, probably more than any other form of energy that's come about. It's been amazing what's been done. It's very safe, very good.
Very safe, very good. I don't know, but did we not say that exact same thing on yesterday's show, which was alternative energy? I talked about the windmill discussion, and I mean, he basically spelled it out right there, getting away with that type of stuff. He continues to go on here and explain why, but I think that bolsters the argument that we had yesterday, which was nuclear. It's going to be, that's where the money's going to go. Yes, we will see fossil fuels open up. We will see some more oil drilling. We will see coal plants open up, etc. But the big money is nuclear. And again, I think that's why we see these things moving so much recently. And from a long-term perspective, at least until the end of his administration, I think you want to have some exposure to that. Because it could very easily shift if we get a new president or a new administration in office, right? You never know what could happen. At least right now, for the next 3+ years, that will be the direction. Oklo is one of those. We had a whole list of them on yesterday's show. Is the Joe Biden better at the sleeping speech? I guess last person he spoke to was a nuclear guy. Probably. I love where he's like, it's clean, it's safe. It's definitely safer than it has been back in the 70s and 80s. Let me get rid of this here. But I thought you guys would enjoy that one because, you know, I do think nuclear is absolutely going to get better and bigger and more expanded reach, and certainly have these micro reactors, which may not be as big as 3 Mile Island. They might be much, much smaller than that, but powering these massive data centers for Nvidia, for Amazon, for Google, etc. Hawaii legislator voted to close their coal mines within 10 years, and they're like, wow, Stephen, I didn't know that. Good for them. Here to it. Next piece. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I got to wrap up a little bit earlier than normal. I talked to you guys about Circle on Monday. I think it was Monday. I'm losing all track of time, guys. Maybe it's early onset Alzheimer's over here, but we talked on Monday, I believe, about Circle and the IPO of Circle. I'm still presently long put, so I'm technically short Circle. And I love USDC. There was a deal made today. If you guys saw this one, Shopify. Shopify has 5.5 million customers. Shopify has made a deal with Coinbase that says they will accept USDC as payment on any site. I think that should be added support for my argument that stablecoins are getting more and more entrenched. Shopify, runs a lot of businesses. And if now, let's say even Trading Academy has a Shopify account, now all of a sudden they can take crypto as payments for classes and courses or whatever goods and services these companies have. I think that's a huge piece going forward. And for right now, it's just USDC. But as we get this architectural framework done and we can start to see more rules around what you can custody and what you cannot custody, I think you're going to start to see Bitcoin as payment and Ethereum for payment and Solana as payment, and that kind of keep going. Why did coin drop today if that's what happened? Well, you know, you could always make that argument, Lisa, that it's the buy the rumor, sell the news piece today. Crypto just started to suffer today. I mean, crypto had a little bit of a down day today. I'll show you here in just a sec, but you know, I don't think that was a piece that just made the day for Coinbase. It's just a huge one for crypto. I'm more chalking it up to that. And if you look at the crypto space, you can see lots of red here today, which is fine. We've had a bunch of big up moves, so you know you have some even in the double-digit losses here, but lots of heavy red for the crypto space. Even Bitcoin today down. What were we down? 2.2% on it. Well, 1.8. So we're still at 107,000. I still feel okay with that. Again, that line in yellow, that's the real big number, and hopefully we will stay above that going forward. But yeah, certainly a little bit of a retracement here. That 110 mark just seems to be very difficult for Bitcoin to close above. All right, I see a whole bunch of questions coming in here. Market Trump actually said that it was, he said that. All right, I didn't get that one. Let's see. Selling covered calls against Nvidia. Believe data and economy is skewed due to tariffs, and I think trend may be changing now. How do I protect profits without losing shares from selling calls? Great. Let me bring up Nvidia's chart here. So you're selling covered calls, and your goal is 150 exit. Well, then why don't you just keep selling those 150 calls? And if it gets taken away at that, it gets taken away. You think that it's going to roll over and go lower here? You could, if you wanted to, buy puts as protection against your position. So if you were in Nvidia long and you're selling covered calls against it, which has been a money-making machine for you for months now, right? You could buy, if you felt it was going to have a significant drop, you could buy puts proportional to whatever your position is and cover that. That would be probably the easiest way to not have to sell your position without losing those shares. Otherwise, yeah, that's what I would be doing. If I had strong conviction that a sell-off was coming in the market. Right now, it's tough. I think that we are seeing more smooth sailing. My only concern right now is July 9th. Obviously, the Fed meeting coming up next week is not that big of a deal. I'm pretty sure we'll keep things right where it's at, although, I didn't put it in here, did I? I try to do fun things for you, and I'll see if I did it. I did not put it in there today. Dab nabbit. I will do it tomorrow. I actually created a Fed scorecard to show you all the metrics that they're looking at, and I graded them. I actually color-coded them to kind of see what the clues are about rates going forward or things like that. So I'm gonna bring it up for you. It's not done, okay? Don't shoot the messenger here, guys and gals. But I just wanted to kind of have fun for myself and also share with you guys what I'm thinking. So here's my scorecard, and maybe I can make this a little bit bigger for you since I built this downstairs, and I'll make the font much bigger for you. Don't worry, I'll pop it up here. And the reason I built this out is you guys all know the Fed has a dual mandate, and that mandate is full employment and stable pricing. So I've got consumer price index on here. I got producer price index. I have PCE, which is the core PCE price index. Those top three are all inflationary, and then have the unemployment rate at the bottom. If it's red, that means to me that it's an argument for the Fed to not lower rates. If it's green, that's an argument for the Fed to lower rates. And right now, everything is green. Now, we have to wait a couple of weeks before we get the next core PCE number. Remember, that's the most important one. But, the CPI number has gone from negative 0.1 to 0.3 to 0.1. As long as that thing oscillates around 0.2, we're golden. You had the PPI numbers. PPI numbers went from negative 0.4 to negative 0.5, and now positive 1. That certainly is a big jump, but PPI staying right around 0.2 would be very good in my opinion, right? PCE number, April 0.0, May 0.1. Okay, even if we get a 0.2 in June, we're fine. My guess is, given the numbers that we see, it'll probably be a 0.1 number. So that'd be another green bubble. And then the unemployment's been 4.2% for three months now. Great, going sideways. So I'm going to keep this going until we get a better sense. I think that in July, that will be when it really comes home. Meaning, if we get to July and those numbers are still green, then I'm pretty sure we'll see a September rate cut. And possibly in July, but I think July will still be a hold. We'll have to wait and see there. Merlin, how come you don't have all your computers networked? You think, you know what? I should. I really should. I was trying to set up a NAS at my home, which is a network data storage system, and I just haven't done that. So yeah, I don't have it. I like it. Lisa says, did you manipulate those numbers? Lisa, the answer is yes. Yeah, these numbers are manipulated, right? There is nothing on this earth that you can tell me to convince me otherwise, especially after I interviewed a guy who worked for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and he said, yes, we do. He didn't say manipulate. We modify the data based off political agenda. That is essentially manipulation. So yes, these numbers could be bad, could be different. But this is what we're being told right now. And if the truth is that Jerome Powell and the Fed is quote unquote data dependent, then this is the only data that they should be looking at, right? They have a dual mandate, full employment and stable pricing. These are the numbers that reflect that. Should they look at GDP? That's not a concern. Economic growth is not a part of it. Now, does economic growth impact inflation and employment? Yes. I mean, I could add GDP on here if you guys really want. Don't they drop rates when unemployment is high? Yes, Luis, they do. The point I'm making here is they're worried about unemployment surging and inflation surging. And typically, if you cut rates, that helps the unemployment numbers, but that hurts the inflation numbers, right? So what we're looking at for, at least for now, is consistency on this data to show that, okay, we can maybe drop 25 basis points because the market is stabilized. Therefore, if we drop 25 basis points, we'll start to see more spending in the United States. We'll see more consumption. We'll see more expansion, more hiring and growth. And then that will ultimately reflect in this other data longer term. So you have the pressure from the president to, obviously, him and Jerome Powell have had some wonderful discussions. Huge, great discussions. No one knows discussions like he does. But they will continue. And as these numbers show more and more consistency, then the Fed is going to lower rates. And they're going to want to do that because you stimulate the economy and the markets do better. Is that good for you and I? I would argue yes, right? Would a rate cut right now immediately impact you? Not a chance. But does it help economic growth? Sure. The big concern, again, is inflation. So if inflation stays tracked and under control, then I think Jerome Powell will cut rates. And that will probably be at that July meeting. We looked at these numbers yesterday. I'll bring it up one more time, just so Margaret can give me a hard time because she said it's my favorite chart. Here is, see if it's changed at all today. Yeah, right now you're at a 97%, call it 98% chance that rates are going to stay the same at the meeting next week. The July meeting is on the 30th, so it's the end of July. And notice there's a shift there. You know, we do see a higher probability. It's a growing probability of a 25 basis point rate cut. And again, if we look at that table, it's all data dependent. So by the time we get to July, the July meeting, we'll have this whole new column will be filled in. And my guess is they're going to be green bubbles, right? Green bubbles. I don't think he called him a numbskull. I think he called him an idiot. It was much more harsh than a numbskull. I think it was like a really come on, man. You don't need to talk to people like that. Comment. I remember I was like, man, that was really, yeah. Jay Powell is politics dependent. Yeah. I remember Powell saying he needs clarity on tariffs. Now we see headlines say that tariffs possibly extended. Yeah. And again, July 9th. That's where, they're talking, what is it, Liberation Day 2.0 is what they're calling it now. And there's a lot of speculation as to what could happen on July 9th. And because of that uncertainty, I think that creates problems for you and I. That July 9th piece, my guess is, will show, he'll say that tariffs are being put back on a whole list of countries. And he'll show that little board again and say, oh, tariffs are on all these countries. And it's back to a shock, which would cause the market to dip on July 9th. And then a few days or maybe a week later, okay, we're in negotiations again, and now we'll do another 90-day pause. Rinse, wash, repeat. We keep kind of doing this until we finally get closure on it. But I think July 9th, you could see, if things continue on, a little bit of a shock factor again. Not as bad as before, because obviously there's some people who are negotiating with America. And both him and Scott Bessent have said, if we get people negotiating with us, then we'll continue the pause on the tariffs as long as you're talking to us. But if you're not talking to us, then we're not talking to you. Boom, tariffs. Which, hey, you know what? Fine, go for it. That will be, yeah, right. That's really what the case will be. So I decided to create this little piece for you guys. I'll probably post it on my Twitter feed when the new announcements and data comes out. So I'll post this bad boy and just put the scorecard on here, because really this is what's driving Jerome Powell. If he says he's data dependent, this is the data that's dependent on. Let me ask you guys, should I add GDP on here? Because GDP isn't a direct mandate of the Fed to watch, but it does impact CPI and unemployment, right? If GDP is growing, that means unemployment is most likely dropping. Margaret says no. Okay. I'll keep it at just these four then. Maybe I should do a poll. How much time do I got? I got to run. I got a meeting to go to. Margaret said no, so GDP is not going to get added. There it is. Margaret, you rule. Okay, let me go to your economic calendar for tomorrow. Really not much. I mean, considering all the big stuff that happened today. You do have the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment reports tomorrow. Oops, there it is over there. That's right, Margaret. You finally, although you're not wearing a chat crown. No chat crown. University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment report and inflation expectations are coming out tomorrow. Look, I don't put a lot of emphasis on these, but I do think it's starting to get a little bit more interesting to see what the consumer is thinking. If the consumers are bitter and nervous or skittish or fearful, that impacts spending. And we need Americans to spend. Bottom line is they need to buy stuff to keep the economy rolling, and the government needs to keep spending. So those numbers come out. That's going to be 30 minutes into the trading day tomorrow, so keep your eye on that one. Other than that, there's really nothing else to speak of. And then on the earnings front, there's nothing happening tomorrow as well. So that'll do it. For those gentlemen who sent in the question, let me give you a shout out again, because I always like when you guys send in questions. They get used. I appreciate it. Although today I was so busy, I didn't get a chance. Oh, I got one more thing to talk about. Chad, you're still here. I apologize. Let me get rid of this graphic here. This was a great question. And it was about velocity logic. Okay, velocity logic. What is velocity logic and what the hell does it mean? Let me read the question to you from Chad here. It's kind of a long one. It says, this morning my future stop order on the CME group was canceled due to a velocity logic event triggered by the CPI release, despite a less than 1% market move, disrupting my straddle strategy. I mitigated losses after noticing the rejection, but CME claimed my broker was responsible, while my broker insisted that CME rejected the order, leaving me in a frustration, he said, she said situation without full resolution, and likely none forthcoming. Have you faced similar velocity logic issues during high-impact events like CPI, and what strategies do you use to mitigate them? Great question. So markets do all sorts. When I saw velocity logic come into place, I think it was 2013, it just further solidified what I need to do to manage risk. And I've told you guys this countless times. The best way to manage your risk on a big announcement day, especially when you have literally a time and date that announcement's coming out, in a minute, stay out of it. Because what happens is that velocity logic is taking millisecond volume, it's taking a snapshot of back data and calculating how much volume is normal and what's not. But when you have, before an announcement, things go very, 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 very quiet, right? Before you get a Fed announcement, markets go really flat, and just like a 100-share order causes big spikes up and down. So what happens is their algorithm gets all screwed up. I don't like velocity logic. I think it's stupid. And what they're trying to do is prevent chaotic swings, but they happen anyway. They still are a part of the market. So I would argue, Chad, your best choice of action here is to just stay out as a risk manager, because this is going to happen to you over and over again. Now, whose fault is it? In my mind, it's the CME. It's the CME group, because they're the ones that establish the peaks and the top and bottom for that velocity limit. And if an order gets transacted out there, it pauses everything. No, not even wider stops, Margaret. It may erase the stop loss order. It cancels things, which to me is obscene. There's a whole point of having stops in there. So Chad, my recommendation would be just don't trade a major announcement. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, there's huge action on those announcements, right? That's the big excitement move of the day is going to happen right as that stuff happens. But the moves are so volatile. The whipsaw, neck brace. That's why I always love having this graphic here. This to me is those announcements, right? We talk about the popcorn trades of the day. That's going to be anything that's big, like CPI, PPI, core. Those ones I just showed you on that graphic earlier, that's when you're going to get those crazy ones. And the reason that the velocity logic is hitting is because the snapshot of data that they're using is so compressed that any outlier, right, any spike is going to cause a freeze up of the system. To me, it's ill-designed. It's poorly designed. They're using a nanosecond look-back period where, for me, it should be like 10, 15-minute look-back period. Let's tariff the CME. Well, remember, they're the ones that make the rules. So, unfortunately, Chad, I have not been hit by logic issue or velocity logic issues. I have been hit by exchange issues. Most likely they're going down, or bad orders, or latent data causes all kinds of issues. So I just relieve the stress by not having orders in when that happens. So every now and again, if I want to day trade and juggle chainsaws, I'll play with it. But typically, remember, you are trading in pre-market on this, right? So it's Globex, and liquidity during that window of time is also extremely low. So I don't have a solution for you, Chad, other than don't trade those times. And I know that might be where you're killing it. You're making a lot of money in there because the moves are so big, but that's why. Because the volatility is just off the charts. All right, sorry, Chad. I wanted to make sure I got that question. Margaret, you had a question that I don't have time to get to today, but I will get to your question tomorrow. You asked me, let me read it out now so we can know what I'm going to answer. He says, the intraday candles on the ES are so big, it's hard to trade patterns if you want to control risk. Can you comment on this during the show? I will get to that one tomorrow. I literally wrote it down just so I could have it in my face today, and I didn't put it in the PowerPoint presentation, so we'll get there. So this doesn't happen during trading hours. They will have lock limits, so you're more subject to lock limits. The velocity logic is pre-market, I believe, exclusively pre-market. And they're trying to prevent these major swings. Because if I'm trading like 1 or 2 contracts, the market will have little blips, right? But when a CPI number comes out, an institution could say, I need 500. And all of a sudden, you get these massive swings and they freeze it so it doesn't destroy people. It's designed to be good with its intent to prevent major spikes, but the canceling of orders doesn't make sense. Your order should stay in place no matter what. Okay, that's going to do it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, those that sent in questions. Chad, thank you for the question. And Thomas, thank you for the question on AMD. Hope you enjoyed it today. If you guys have something you want me to cover, send them in earlier. Thomas's came in, a couple hours ago, so I didn't have a lot of time to do research. Earlier, the better. It's Friday, so I should have plenty of time in the morning to go over your questions and build out content for you. So let me know what it is. TraderMerlin@gmail.com. Take care, everybody. Have a great Friday. I will see you tomorrow.